Hello, family. Welcome to the Hope, Helping Our People Elevate YouTube channel, where we uncover the hidden truths of history and elevate our understandings of the past. If you're new here, thank you for joining us. And to our returning viewers, as I always say, welcome back. Today, we're going to dive into a powerful piece of history, Hiring Day, a critical moment in the economic cycle of slavery when debts were settled and labor was exploited on New Year's Day. Drawing on the enterprise of historian Alexis McCrossin in her forthcoming book, Times Touchstone, The New Year's in American Life, we'll explore how this practice shaped lives and legacies. Be sure to hit that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button and stay connected as we continue to uncover stories that matter. Peace and love, family.
On behalf of Akuno Senko for Bay, you know what I'm saying? Jay, where you at? We're trying to help our people elevate. Hope. H.O.P.E. We're giving them hope. We doing what we gotta do, you know. Every day, one step at a time, man. We gonna make it happen. Helping our people elevate. Yeah. Sometimes I practice focus, thought, and meditate. I'm trying to come with other ways to help our people elevate and seeking knowledge, make me levitate. The lifted mental state is what results from how we orchestrate. This for the family's sake. Let's self-reflect and self-evaluate. And every day, make sure the steps you take, you calculate. Receive a master's fate. I know I can't exist without the hate, but that's okay. I balance that with higher self today. Success is on this way, and after that, my flesh can pass away.
The slaves dread New Year's Day the worst. The grim history of January 1st.
We were to meet here by the auction block. Ah, there he is. Up to now, I work my place myself. But I clicked.
He only paid £20 for the wench, and she was nearly 4 months showing.
Americans are likely to think that New Year's Eve and New Year's Day is a time to celebrate the fresh start that a new year represents. But there is also a troubling side to the holiday's history. In the years before the Civil War, the first day of the New Year's was often a heartbreaking one for enslaved people in the United States. In the African American community, New Year's Day used to be widely known as Hiring Day or Heartbreak Day, as the African American abolitionist journalist William Cooper Nell described it, because enslaved people spent New Year's Eve waiting, wondering if their owners were going to rent them out to someone else, thus potentially splitting up their families. The renting out of slave labor was a relatively common practice in the antebellum South and a profitable practice for white slave owners and hirers. Hiring Day was part of a larger economic cycle in which most debts were collected and settled on a New Year's Day, says Alexis McCrossin, an expert on the history of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day and a professor of history at the Southern Methodist University, who writes about Hiring Day in her forthcoming book, Times Touchstone, The New Year's in American Life. Some enslaved people were put up for auction that day or held under contracts that started in January. These transactions also took place all year long, and the contracts could last for different amounts of time. These deals were conducted privately among families, friends, and business contracts, and slaves were handed over in town squares, on courthouse steps, and sometimes simply on the side of the road, according to Divity Mastery, Slaving Hiring in the American South by Jonathan D. Martin.
It's a fine batch up here.
Careful, we don't need more damaged goods now.
All right, first lot, get him out. The gentlemen are waiting. Out.
Come on, wench.
Accounts of cruelty of Hiring Day came from records left by those who secured their freedom, who described spending the day before January 1st, hoping and praying that their hirers would be humane and that their families could stay together. Of all days in the year, the slaves would dread New Year's Day the worst of any. A slave named Lewis Clark said in an 1842 account, "On New Year's Day, we went to an auctioneer's block to be hired by the highest bidder for 1 year." Israel Campbell wrote in a memoir published in 1861 in Philadelphia, in which he describes being hired out 3 times.
Calling your attention to the first item being offered for sale. Now, she's a fine black pearl indeed, gentlemen. She's in fine condition. She made the entire trip above decks like a fine lady. You'll find no marks.
That's where the saying comes from, what you do on New Year's Day is what you'll be doing the rest of the year, a former slave known as Sister Harrison said in an interview in 1937. Harriet Jacob wrote a particular detailed account in The Slave's New Year's Day chapter of her 1861 autobiography, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Hiring Day at the South takes place on the 1st of January. On the 2nd, the slaves are expected to go to their new master, she wrote. She observed slave owners and farmers renting out their human chattel for extra income during this period, between the cotton and corn harvest and the next planting season.
Please, do not divide my family. Do not take me unless you take my children.
Liza, quiet!
Your price for the boy.
Separate us. Please.
Stop it. I will give you something to cry about. Randall, come forward. Come. Now, you see how fit.
From Christmas to New Year's, many families would wait anxiously to find out whether they would be rented out and to whom. On New Year's Day, at the appointed hour, the grounds are thronged with men, women, and children, waiting like criminals to hear their doom pronounced, Jacob wrote. On one of these fateful days, Jacob says, a mother led 7 children to the auction block. She knew that some would be taken from her, but they took all. The slave trader who took the children wouldn't tell her where he was taking them because it depended on where he could get the highest price. Jacob said she would never forget the mothers crying out, "Gone, all gone, why don't God kill me?" Enslaved people who attempted to resist going to their new masters were whipped and thrown into jail until they relented and promised not to run away during their new arrangement. Older slaves were also particularly vulnerable, as Jacob describes, one owner trying to hire out a frail, roughly 70-year-old woman because he was moving away.
Century. Over 500,000 slaves are sold at auction. It's a business worth $2 billion to the Southern economy. Now men cost $1,000, women $800, children $500.
But the history of New Year's Day and American slavery is not all horror. The holiday was also associated with freedom. The federal ban of the transatlantic slave trade went into effect on New Year's Day in 1808, and African American communities did celebrate, but the festivities were short-lived. Different slave trade abolition commemorations took place between 1808 and 1831, but they died out because the domestic slave trade was so vigorous, says McCrossan. The risk of violence was also too great. For example, on New Year's Eve in 1827, in New York City, a white mob attacked an African American congregant and vandalized their church. The holiday became more associated with freedom than slavery when Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing slaves in the Confederate States on New Year's Day in 1863. Slaves went to church to pray and sing on December 31st, 1862, and that's why there are still New Year's Eve prayer services at African American churches nationwide. As such, watch night services, congregants continue to pray for more widespread racial equality more than 150 years later. I want to say thank you for watching The Hope, helping our people elevate. Your support helps us to shine light on these often overlooked stories and empower our communities through knowledge. If you found today's video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And subscribe to the channel for more impacting content. We just hit 1,000 subscribers. We're on the road to going up. So together we can elevate our people and honor our history. Until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and keep elevating. Peace and love, family.